All
Done.
right. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here this morning. My name is Wangare. I am the lead mentor at Ada Africa Journal Club. And I see we have a good crowd. People are still joining. We are at 15 participants on the call, and our guest speaker is here. So just before we start, we have some exciting announcements, and I will say them shortly. Meanwhile, please introduce yourselves. I see on the chat, people are already introducing themselves. Thank you so much. Tell us your name, institution, research interests, and maybe also what you expect to learn today. Today, we have a very interesting topic, and the announcement is that this is part one. Our guest speaker will be with us again on Wednesday evening. Do not miss it at 6 p.m. on the 12th. 6 p.m. East Africa time, we will do part two. And next week again on Friday, we have another very exciting webinar. This is a partnership between Ada Africa, TCC Africa, Africa Archive, which you can actually upload your preprints, even if you've not published a full article yet, and pre-review. So I'd like you to please note these events coming up. And now I'll just take time to introduce our guest speaker and today's topic. So thank you so much. I see even the guest speaker, you've introduced yourself in the chat. Thank you so much. Keep writing your introductions, and let's get to know where everybody is coming from. So today's topic is qualitative research proposal part one. And our guest speaker is Mr. Eliud Okumu. He is a lecturer and PhD student of sociology, with a bias or specialization in social policy at Egerton University, Kenya, in the Department of Sociology, Faculty of Arts and Social Sciences. He holds a Master of Arts in Sociology as well. Is it sociology or sociology? I will learn. You know, I'm a psychologist, so we share the social sciences at least.
Yeah.
And the master's specialization was in community development and project management. He is a trainer of trainers, TOT, in peace building, research methods, and gender. His passion in action research, policy development, and analysis combines with over 6 years experience at the university conducting research. So you see today you're in very good hands. We have a really competent guest speaker, and we are honored to sit at his feet today. So qualitative research is useful for social science researchers and students who often seek to explain social phenomenon in detail. So without further ado, I would like to hand over the session to Eliud. We have about 1 to 2 hours. Our members are very timely. As you can see, they joined very early. And even if we do not take the full 2 hours, it will be okay, because members, feel free to add your comments, questions as we continue, and we will finish, you know, as soon as we have addressed your concerns. Bring all your questions on qualitative research. So Karibu, Eliud Okumu.
Thank you, Joyce, for that elaborate introduction. And I'm honored to be here today and just to share with colleagues a little bit about qualitative research. As I had mentioned earlier, this is also an opportunity to share what we have, what we are carrying with us in terms of qualitative research. So it's going to be some sort of symbiotic learning. And therefore, I'll just lead the discussion. I'll not be lecturing too much. And you know, as lecturers, we have a tendency to lecture. So to avoid that, I'll try as much as is tenable to be able to engage, you know, discuss together, so that for the benefit of each and every one of us. So with that, allow me just to share my screen so that we can begin. There we are. Okay, so already, you know, this is what I'm hoping to share with you, just to try and understand, develop a common understanding of qualitative research, you know, just a few philosophical foundations of qualitative research, look at qualitative designs that exist, and sampling that we can do when you're doing qualitative research, and then the qualitative data collection tool. So this is all that I hope to share with you in the next 1 or so hours. But I think as a matter of starting, I would just want to note that there are a number of variations in terms of how we understand qualitative research. We have books, we have articles that have been written, and they have different interpretations or different approaches to qualitative research. But one thing that is clear is that in all the cases, qualitative research seeks to have a deeper understanding of social phenomena, seeks to have a detail in terms of explaining, describing, and understanding of a phenomena. So I think in all the cases, despite the variations in terms of the approaches, that's one common feature that you're going to notice as we move forward. So with that, I think the first question we want to ask ourselves, and again, like I said earlier, it's just important to share and find out where we are with all this. And the first thing that we need to answer is, what is qualitative research? And I would seek opinions of the team that is around. What is qualitative research? Unfortunately, now I can't see everyone, so anybody can go. What is qualitative research? I'm listening. Anyone?
So you may raise your virtual hand if you'd like to contribute, or also type in the chat. Welcome.
Sure.
Maybe this generation is the kind to Google. Maybe they are Googling the answer.
That would be interesting. Yeah.
Who would like to try? Please, let's make this participatory, interactive. Yeah. What is qualitative research?
Any thoughts? Okay, Justina, go. Justina?
Yes, sorry, can I try without Googling?
Please go ahead, feel free.
I would say that it's a form of research that comes up with a way of answering the question why and how.
Right, the question of why and how.
And
that is
how.
What.
Yes.
All right. I can see Benjamin.
Hello, hi, good morning.
Hey, Benjamin.
Thanks. From an etymological perspective, we are looking at the qualities of a phenomenon, what researchers call the essence of a phenomenon. So you want to describe the characteristics, what comes out as the quality that would be ascribed to a certain phenomenon. That's my view of what qualitative research is. Thanks.
Yeah, great. Those are very useful ideas. Why
Sorry,
and
I didn't get the question. Sorry.
All right. We're just trying to check, just to get together in terms of our understanding of qualitative research. So the question is, what is qualitative research? Did you get me? Right. So I was saying that from our colleagues who've just shared. From colleagues who've just shared, there is an indication that this is about answering the question why and how. And Benjamin has taken us forward and indicated that qualitative research is about understanding the qualities or the essence of a phenomena. Let me just share what I had here. How come my screen is not moving? Joyce, my screen is not scrolling.
I wonder, maybe just remove it from full screen. Just click
okay.
on it. Yeah.
Let me just stop and then try share again.
Yeah.
Right. Right. So these are just some thoughts that I got from different books, that qualitative research is basically interested in understanding how, like one of us, Justina, indicated, how people interpret their experiences, how they construct their world, and what meanings they attribute to their experiences. So it's basically a research that uses words as data that we finally collect. And I think the key thing here is we are seeking to understand. We are seeking to understand how people interpret their experience, how people understand their experiences, whatever they've experienced. If you're studying, for example, if you're studying conflicts, then we want to understand what is the experience that these people have had during the conflict. What are their pains? What are their motivations? What are their anger that they carry with them? So that's what you're seeking to understand with qualitative research. The second thing, as indicated, is that qualitative research is about words as being the data. This is not numbers as we do with quantitative studies. But in this case, we are just looking at the words that we collect, the experiences that we collect. The other thing that we are also saying is that qualitative research studies our phenomena in a natural setting. We try to make sense about the phenomena in the setting where we find them. And this is basically about people. It's about human beings, where we find them in their natural setting, in their homes, in their villages, in their meetings, and we try to understand the beliefs that they have. We try to understand the values they carry, the feelings, and the motivations that underlie their behavior. For instance, if we want to study, a number of researchers recently have come up indicating that during the COVID period, the COVID-19, domestic violence have increased. So we want to understand what are the reasons why this is happening. So we want to go into detail and try to seek to understand why men or women are beating their partners in the household. So when you do that, and how this is happening, the context within which this is happening. Is it happening at night? Is it happening during the day? All that would be qualitative studies, because we are looking at the feelings, we are looking at the experiences that these people carry. This is just a simple example of what a qualitative study would do. And this is about if somebody wanted to study retired adults and how they are coping, or their lives has changed because they've stopped their full-time jobs. In a survey, if you're doing a survey or a quantitative study, we'll be looking for percentages, we'll be looking for numbers. But in this case, the question that we'll be asking is, how have they adjusted to the retirement period? How they're managing their lives, for example, that now they wake up and you're not going anywhere and you're just at home. So we want to understand how they are adjusting to this. We want to understand, what do they think about this phase of life? Are they very disappointed? Like in our case as lecturers, I remember the other day, our National Secretary General was indicating that a professor does not retire, that a professor must die in the profession. So we want to understand how they think about this phase of life. Are they happy about it? Are they angry about it? So we want to understand all that, and that would be qualitative research. And then possibly just understand, were they prepared for all this? So that is what we're calling qualitative research. So it's basically the essence of a given phenomena. Now, again, just another example. You're asking, what did you feel when you saw the free ice cream? Were you excited or scared? Somebody is scared, somebody is excited. And then we ask why. So we are basically looking for words. And that's what you're calling qualitative methods. Because we are not in a class, you can stop me at any given point and ask questions or make a contribution. Any additions, any questions, any concerns that you might want to add to this?
I saw a chat from Eliud saying what qualitative research is. Eliud Biegon, just scrolling up. So many chats in here.
Yeah.
Elliot, could you say what it was? I lost it again. Yeah, it says inquiry into the nature of humanity.
Right.
Yeah.
Benjamin, did this capture Benjamin and can't recall the name of our sister who contributed? Did this capture your definition?
Yes, very well. In fact, I like how you explained the idea of lived experiences that people have and how and why what meaning they make out of their own experiences. So really, I like that very much. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. So then, in most studies that we do, in any scientific research that we do, whether at university or out there, one of the key requirements is that it has to be based in it's grounded in some philosophy, grounded in some approach. And that takes us to the next thing, some of the philosophical approaches that we use in qualitative research. And again, before I share this, I would love to know, because I believe all of us have been into some setting of research, I would want to request that we share some of the philosophical approaches that we've used in any research study, then we'll place them. You can name all of them, then we'll place them, whether they are qualitative or quantitative in nature. So, open forum again. Any suggestions, any ideas in terms of the approaches, philosophical approaches that we've used in any study? Benjamin, go.
Oh, I hope today I'm not the student who raises their hand so much.
Yeah, I think in this context, this is allowed. You're going to be a co-lecturer, co-teacher here.
Thank you. Well, I know of what we call constructivism or interpretivist. I think those go hand in hand.
Sure.
Maybe my colleagues can say the rest.
Sure. Thank you so much. Any other thoughts?
Pragmatic.
Say a little bit about that.
I said pragmatic, or should I call it pragmatism?
All right. Any other thoughts? Any other theoretical or philosophical approach that we've used?
Positivists.
Positivists or positivism.
Or positivism, yes, thanks.
Yeah. Keep them coming, keep them coming.
For me, I would say positivist would be within the quantitative type of philosophies.
All right, thank you, Relia. But we're just listing, and then we want to separate. We want to pick out which ones are qualitative and which ones are quantitative.
And I think that is linked to the question Obadiah has asked in the chat. Does qualitative research have some research orientation? I think that's connected, yeah. Eric Okoth has asked a different question. How can we analyze qualitative data collected? I think that will come later.
Sure. Analysis we'll do possibly, we'll see how we do that next week. All right, so we have three so far. We have constructivism or interpretivism, we have pragmatism, and then we have positivism. And as Aurelia has indicated, positivism definitely goes to quantitative research, and that is because positivism is grounded on the foundation that that reality or phenomena can be explained objectively, that the reality, the truth is out there and can be explained objectively, and that we can be able to conduct a study and determine causality, determine or explain the phenomena or objectively. That's the one. Constructivism is one of them, and allow me to share what I have. Again, it looks like I have to get off the screen before I come back again. Okay. Okay, but one of the philosophical foundations of research that you have is ontology, and this is concerned about the nature of being, but you have developments out of the original ontological philosophy, and that is now commonly referred to as social ontology, and this is concerned about the nature of social reality. And the central or the key question here in social ontology is whether to explain reality objectively, that social entities or social phenomena can be considered to be objective entities that have reality that is external to the social actors, essentially. So the social phenomena and their meanings have existence that is independent of the social actors themselves. And then the second question in this social ontological orientation is that whether we should consider social reality as a construction or as a social construction that can only be studied with actors in mind, so that we have the social actors, we have the actors as part and parcel of the phenomena. In other words, the objectivity is not there. Those are two questions that are opposite to each other, that social ontological orientation seems to ask, whether we can understand social reality objectively or whether it's built up in the perceptions and actions of the social actors. But this, I'll speak to this as we move forward again. So let me just go through the philosophies and then I can come back if there's any questions or just provide further explanation. The other one is phenomenology, which is considered to be a philosophical approach that was developed by Husserl. I'm not so sure I can pronounce his other name. Those who did French would help. Those who did, I think this must be German. I'm not so sure. But Husserl and his colleague conducted a study on, developed the phenomenological approach. I can see somebody by the name Infinix scaring up his hand.
Yeah, Infinix, you may talk.
Infinix, go ahead.
Please introduce your name.
Infinix, go ahead. If we can call you that for now.
I'm not sure his audio is active. I can see his audio icon is not working. So Infinix, please check your audio settings or try log off and log back in, and then please rename your Zoom as well. So maybe just continue. Infinix, right. You could just type your question in the chat. Your audio is not active. All right.
All right, thank you. So saying that Husserl and his colleague developed this approach, and this is about people's life experiences. And it's also important to note that phenomenology is considered to be both a philosophy and a research method, and we'll talk about the methodology or the design at a later stage. But it's considered to be a philosophy and a research method. But the purpose of this, when you take this approach, when you take this phenomenological approach as part of the study, then our intention is to describe experiences. So our intention is to understand experiences. And I think we shall see that this is not interested in numbers, it's not interested in the magnitude of the sample size, but it's basically interested in capturing the experiences of the people. And again, this is, and we link this back to ontological question as to whether reality can be subjective or objective, the social ontology. And we are saying here that phenomenology takes an approach that social phenomena must only be understood from a subjective point of view, in the sense that we can only interpret social world from the basis of our respondents. We can't have our own, we cannot say that we can go objectively on this. And then we are further saying that this approach in phenomenology, we can only know experience by attending or having attention, a lot of attention to the perceptions and meanings that people will share with us. And of course, this is repetitive, that there is no objective experience, that the experiences that we hold can only be subjective in nature. So we are understanding people on their own terms. I think this should be the last thing on phenomenology. That the question is, what is the essence? And good enough, Benjamin introduced us to this, that the phenomenology seeks to understand the essence of a given phenomena. So it's a belief that truth about reality are grounded in people's life or lived experiences. So that is phenomenology. Then Benjamin also took us here very early in the session that we also have constructivism or interpretivism. Constructivism is a common, and this is the most common philosophical approach that we use in qualitative research. And interpretivists share the view that the subject matter of social science and their institutions is fundamentally different from natural science. And therefore, we can only assume that this reality is socially constructed. There is no single observable reality when we use social constructivist approach, that we have so many realities on an interpretation of a given event. And I'd like to share, I wish I could share with you this, but since I didn't know who is coming in, I didn't share this online. But there's this story about a sheikh who was going to the desert. And when the sheikh left home, when he was leaving home, because he was going to the desert, he had to carry water in a water bottle. And in this water bottle, this sheikh had a girlfriend and he had a wife. So as he was leaving home, the wife poisoned the water. He added some poison to the water. And when the sheikh left, he left his house and the wife's house, and then went to the girlfriend's house. When he went to the girlfriend's house, the girlfriend punctured a hole in the water bottle. So the water bottle was leaking as he traveled to the forest. So he went to the forest and, because he didn't have water, all the water had leaked, the sheikh died. So from a qualitative approach, if you wanted to explain the death of a sheikh, what would we be talking about? And I'd like us to share on this. Tim, if the sheikh died and somebody poisoned the water, the other one punched a hole on the water bottle, sheikh did not have water in the desert, so he died. So we want to explain his death qualitatively. What do you think? Any thoughts?
Please raise your virtual hand.
Or you can.
We'd like to hear your voices.
Yes, yes.
And diverse experiences.
Yeah.
Okay.
Stephen, welcome.
Yeah, thank you, Joyce.
Thank you.
Okay, for me, if I was looking at every angle, for me, I'll tackle it by the fact that the sheikh didn't have water.
Yes.
I won't factor in much about the poison in that water because he never drank the water. So, so the fact that he didn't have the water, he didn't have water to drink, that's why he died. So the fact that the wife poisoned the water is not a major thing for me. That's my point of view. But of course, even if he drank the water, he still died because it had poison.
That would be a very useful intervention in a court of law if somebody was suing the wife and the girlfriend. Great, thank you for that opinion. Any other thoughts?
I think the universe conspired against him to
All right.
to ensure he died, because either way he was going to be killed by one of them. So it means that the universe had conspired to ensure that either of his ladies kills him.
Yes. All right.
So basically, he died because of the ladies. Yeah.
Yeah.
I also see Eda on the chat, natural death due to dehydration, lack of water.
So, but I like the explanation that whichever way the sheikh would have died, considering that if he took the water, he would have died because of poison. The water was not there, the bottle was punctured, and therefore he was saved of the poison, but he still died because of dehydration. So essentially, there are multiplicity of interpretations that we can make in terms of trying to explain a social phenomena. Again, I've let the Nini stay for too long. I have to.
There's also MM who says self-inflicted death for being a double dealer.
Oh, but that is the nature of social phenomena. You know, we explain it in different ways depending on the perspective you want to take. We have multiplicity of explanations. Again, I have to stop sharing and then come back to it again, sadly.
Yeah, there's a number of questions on phenomenology. Dr. Josephine Mudhami says, I wish to get it clear what is a phenomena or phenomenology. Helen, Moi University says, what is epistemology in research?
Okay.
So do we take the questions as we go or at the end?
I think we can take them after every subsection.
All right, thank you.
Right. Okay, so the other one that we often use in qualitative research is symbolic interactionism. And this is associated with George Herbert Mead. And George Herbert Mead's symbolic interactionist approach focuses on focuses on meaning and their interpretation. And this is...
sorry, are you sharing screen or?
Oh. It looks like I'm sharing it to myself, which is sad.
Yeah, we have not yet seen it.
This is serious.
That is the true interpretivism.
Yeah. Oh, goodness. The challenges of this technology that we have to adapt to.
Right.
I always have my son helping me, but he's taking his breakfast.
Moses Osiro says positionality of the researcher matters here too.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, good.
So I was saying that symbolic interactionism is associated with George Herbert Mead, and Mead, according to Mead, this symbolic interactionist approach focuses on meaning and interpretations, especially that which people create and share through interactions. And I think one thing that I want to emphasize in this symbolic interactionism is that the focus or the basis of the approach is on interactions, that we explain meaning and interpret them, and as we interpret them from a context of interaction. So, and the most important or critical thing here is the symbols in symbolic interactionism. I'd like to add that this helps explain, it's more useful when we are doing a micro level analysis. For example, if we want to explain individual behavior, like Mead often indicated, that as human beings, we are always acting. And we are the major actors in the plays that we find ourselves in. And perhaps this explains why we have unique personality, or we present ourselves as unique in different contexts. Like if we meet as in class, for example, we are different people. If we meet as in the streets, we are different people. So it's about uniqueness that we carry with us, the acting that we have, as George Herbert Mead indicates. Why can't I be moving? Is it that I'm sharing the screen for far too long?
I don't know.
Or you can share with me the slides, then I can help move them as I'm hosting.
All right, yeah. So I send you that, I send it on email.
Yes.
All right, let me try to do that immediately. Meanwhile, we can handle the questions that are, yeah.
Yes, Dr. Josephine Mudami throws a spanner in the works. She asks, why was he to be killed by the two women? That is a true, she's a true qualitative researcher.
Yes, why were the women interested in his life?
Yes, yeah. There are as many interpretations as there are people in this Zoom call.
For sure, and that's the nature of qualitative studies.
Yes.
Somebody else. Okay, go ahead.
I mean, Dorothy Obengo asks, thank you for this session. One big question, why do we have to use philosophy in research?
Why do you have to use philosophy in research? I think I'll try do the connection as we head towards the end, why philosophy is useful. But just for now, just to try and answer that the philosophy that we use in research determines the design that you're going to pick out, determines the data collection method that we are going to use. So for that reason, the philosophy is critical at this very initial stages, that we can only do research, we can only explain whatever we've claimed to study based on a given philosophy.
Thank you.
Can I, hello,
yes,
can I, hi, this is Marco. I think the question is pretty good, but the qualitative or social sciences, especially in the second half of the 20th century, started being under this complex and a feeling that they have to be as close to natural science as possible. And therefore, this parsimonic / very modest way to interpret things, such as quantitative studies, the wish and desire to explain everything in numbers. So that's the essential difference. But when you cannot explain something like that, that's where philosophy comes in. And to be honest, I don't consider social sciences to be sciences in the first place because of this absence of scientific. But what are they then? Obviously, they exist as disciplines. So probably, and to me, they're primarily philosophical disciplines rather than sciences. So at least that would be my take. I don't know how the distinguished speaker feels about that, but just a little bit of attempt at answering that question.
Great, thank you, Marco.
Thank you, Marco.
Yeah, I think we take one more, or do you want to respond to that, Elliot?
I think Marco was just making an addition or providing an explanation. So you can take one. Yeah.
Yeah. Somebody was talking, a lady.
Dorothy?
Sorry, sorry. It was just a thought and my thinking, not explanation. I don't dare.
All right.
Marco, I totally agree with you in terms of people wanting to explain qualitative on the terms of quantitative, which I think doesn't even work. So I agree with you. Dorothy, welcome.
Dorothy, go.
I was just saying thank you. Maybe because I've stayed away from research for a long time, I come back and all I'm hearing is a lot of philosophy. So I'm wondering, when did you... Actually, I just went to my husband and asked him, how come we are using a lot of your philosophy in research? Then he looks at me, what? So I said, I'll ask today. So I'm really grateful, Marco. Thank you also, Mwalimu, for teaching us this. I'm learning.
Thank you. I think there was a question, Joyce, that was raised on the chat. We must have skipped it at some point.
Which one? Is it on epistemology or phenomenology?
I think it must have been epistemology.
Yeah, somebody asked what is epistemology, what is a phenomenology, and then somebody made a comment on positionality.
Okay.
And Maria makes a joke. She says the monological theory worked on the sheikh.
The demons, yeah.
The monological theory, that's a new one.
That would be very useful, especially when you go to grounded theory. that you can base it on some data and some info, some research.
Yes.
But I think epistemology is about the process of knowing or acquiring knowledge, which is not commonly used in. It's not common with qualitative research. So I think for now I can let it pass for reasons that it's much more stronger in quantitative studies. Okay, so now Aurelia will be my co-facilitator. I will be taking my screen. So Aurelia, we can go. Okay, so the designs, I've teased out a few. Again, I went through a couple of books trying to locate or pick out the qualitative research designs. I even got I think that was Cresswell, who was mentioning that there are a number of researches that has been done, and we have designs that go up to 20 in qualitative research. But I decided, let me pick out on the few that are much more common, the ones that are much more commonly used in qualitative studies. Looking at a number of studies, these are the ones that you can easily get to pick out. So we have ethnography, phenomenology, grounded theory, narrative, and case studies as part of designs. But I think I want to add this: that if we are doing studies, the theories that we pick out will influence the kind of design that we can make a choice to. Because it's not easy to pick. It's incorrect to pick a theory, pick a design that doesn't answer or doesn't respond or doesn't fit within the qualitative philosophy. So let's look at each of them. Aurelia. Okay, it's hanging again.
Is it moving? Not yet? Okay, just a minute.
Okay. All right. This is just to capture the whole all the designs. That if we want to study individuals, then narrative or a phenomenological approach or design will be much more useful. If we want to explore processes, activities, and events, then a case study or a grounded theory would be the best design that you want to pick out. And if you want to learn about people's cultures and behaviors, whether they're as individuals or as groups, then ethnography becomes one of the best designs that you want to pick out. Next. Next. Okay. So this is the first one, ethnography. And ethnography is like in the previous slide, it's indicated that ethnography studies much more about people's values, people's cultures, people's languages. And this is about studying people in their context. We understand them in their context. We understand, we look at their beliefs, we look at their values, but within their context. This is drawn from anthropological studies. Previously, it was much more in anthropology, but of course, anthropology is a child of sociology and social science in general, and therefore ethnography is one of the designs that we use. If you look at the side, you notice that it relies on formal and informal interviews, observations, collecting texts and images, and therefore, when we go out to the field that we picked a design, our design is ethnography. Then we will do transcriptions, we'll have field notes, and we'll have documentary analysis if we use ethnographic design. Next. That looks like a slide that was there earlier. Okay. Or it's repeated. Is it repeated, Aurelia? Oh, okay. Sorry. I see where my confusion is coming from. Just go back a little bit. Okay.
Okay. Now you see.
Yes. So the second design is phenomenology, and like I said earlier, when you're looking at the approaches, the philosophical approaches, phenomenology is interested in as a design will lend itself to lived experiences. It's much more interested in the conscious experience of people's everyday lives and their actions. It's interested in studying affection, emotions, betrayal, and generally intense human experiences. For example, if we're interested in studying people who've lost loved ones, their experiences, then phenomenology becomes the best design that you want to look out for. If you want to study, betrayal, especially like in our context, if you're looking at betrayal in the political arena, then this theory might be very useful because we see a lot of betrayal. I don't know whether they even see it as betrayal in the first place, but this theory would be useful in helping us. This design would be useful in terms of helping us understand those kind of scenarios or experiences that people have. Next. Okay, so like we said earlier, qualitative research has multiple explanations, and if you look at this elephant, we have different people experiencing it differently, and phenomenology is like that because, like you said, subjective experiences of people can only be understood from their perspective. So we cannot tell the person who is experiencing the elephant as a spear, we cannot say that he has a wrong perspective. The person who is experiencing it as a rope is rightly so because that is what he's experiencing. So this is about subjective experiences of people. And more often than not, you may find that the experiences are also very unique, and we may not be able to make generalizations because they are individualized in nature. And next, grounded theory, again, as a design, was developed by Glaser and Strauss, and they assume an inductive stance in trying to understand, to derive meaning from data. But the overall perspective of this design is that we develop theory out of research, that we collect data, develop theory, the theory emerges in the process, and that theory that we come up with is based on research. So we are seeking to come up with a theory from the studies that we do. For instance, I'm just wondering what would be, if we try to explain, I'm trying to figure out which community seems to experience more domestic violence. But if we can get a community that experiences more domestic violence, then we might go out there, collect data and qualitative data for that matter, and then come up with an explanation as to why that is happening, how it is happening, and how people are experiencing it. But by the end of the day, we are theorizing. So essentially, grounded theory seeks to develop a theory. We begin by theory development. This is very different, definitely, from quantitative research, where we are out to confirm theories or negate theories. But in this case, we are out to develop theories from our research. This is largely based on symbolic interactionist perspective that seeks to understand people from their settings, seeks to understand people from their symbols and the meanings that they have. Next. A narrative design. The narrative design is it's about the use of stories. The use of stories that people tell in our interactions on a daily basis. Those stories the design becomes the driving avenue through which data will be collected. So if we pick a design, a narrative design, then it means that we're going out there and our data collection method, our tools that we're going to use will largely be around stories as the data that we are going to collect. So it's collecting data through stories. So we look at the experiences, we look at the meanings, we seek to understand the people from the stories that they give us. And that's what narrative inquiry is all about. But additionally, we are saying that in the present day society, where some stories are told on social media, Facebook being one of them, then that becomes one of the sources, one of the ways through which this design will work, because we are collecting stories, we are collecting those narratives, and that becomes a source of data that we use in qualitative research. Next. Okay. So these narratives that these stories that we are collecting, we drew them from either first-person accounts, so the individual giving us narrations, and the stories that they give have a beginning, a middle, and an end. And the data collection method that we'll certainly use when you're doing narrative has to be in-depth interviews. Okay, next one. Case study method design. This again was developed or antecedents from anthropology, sociology, and psychology. And the case study method is an in-depth description and analysis in a bounded system. In other words, we are studying a single individual from some given framework. We are studying, for example, we want to understand the behavior of particular students, whether students with a disability, for example, in an institution. So a bounded system within it becomes the institution, but we're picking the individuals within the institution. And that's what we'll be studying. We pick out the individuals and we study the details of this individual. So the single person in the case study is the one that will provide information for that particular region. So that if I'm just to give another example, if you want to study the behavior, allow me to use for the Kenyans, Gor Mahia team, and the kind of behaviors that they exhibit. So we pick out a few individuals, single persons within that fan base, and try to explain that behavior, their behavior, using a case. So the unit of analysis in a case study is this single individual. Next. Okay, yeah, exactly. I think that is what I've just explained, that our unit of analysis is not the topic of investigation, but our unit of analysis is the single individual that we're picking out to study, and that becomes our unit of analysis. So that is the distinction that, again, we'll make when it comes to that case study becomes unique compared to the other qualitative designs that I've just mentioned. That for case study, the single individual becomes our unit of analysis. Great. This is just to further case study. Any opinion on this? Any comments? I picked this not because I'm a Luo, but just for the sake of learning. Any interventions? Any ideas in relation to case study? And you could comment even on the other designs. So again, I allow anyone to comment.
Marco caught the humor in the t-shirt messages. Ha ha ha. Evelyn's saying you want to join the club. Unfortunately, our clubs are full, but we will keep in touch. Please fill the feedback form on the link to join the club. And of course, you will get the resource materials. Many people are enjoying this presentation. They would like the resource materials after this. So members who would like to comment on case study, please unmute. Kindly, we'd like to hear your voices too.
I can say something.
Yes,
sure.
Jeremiah Nganda, welcome.
Thank you. I think looking at the three photos and in relation to case study, it speaks of the way we can look at one particular case, but in different perspectives. So in one, we are looking at the mid one, we are looking at the issue to do with maybe calmness. The other one is in a way to do the yellowish one. The third one is maybe in terms of payments. The other one is on being a pretender. So yes, look at one case, but from different perspectives.
Great. Thank you, Jeremiah. Any other thoughts? Okay, let me just say something about this. Somebody has thrown one that Luo lifestyle of a Luo. Yes, that this can help us explain the lifestyle of a Luo, and I'm just thinking, especially the stereotypes that come with it, that more often we Luos have been branded as people who are just ready to run riots. You know, we are ready to go to the streets, we are ready to stone anyone. And the middle t-shirt would be very relevant in terms of trying to understand whether this individual who is rioting, is he representative in terms of practice, in terms of culture? Is he representative of the entire Luo community, that there is no Luo who cannot keep calm? So that single most individual that we're picking out, that helps in terms of understanding the larger Luo community. And then one is paid in Luo dollars, and the other one, a Luo cannot be, a broke Luo is a pretender. Again, we want to understand their lifestyle. Is it true that Luos just have money, or they're actually just broke and they're just presenting other things? I have a friend who was doing a study on these things that people write on their backs, and there was a PhD study in Maseno, and the student was more concerned with how whatever is written on the t-shirts represents the behavior of the community. And one of the things that she was looking at, and I remember one of the t-shirts that she shared with me, was where a lady had written that in Kisumu there's nobody's husband. When it's written in Luo, it's even funny. So and that is what she went out to study. And therefore, that is a case study, because you'll pick out 5, 10, 20 people who have writings on their back in the entire Kisumu town and make conclusion that this fact actually influences the way people behave. So that is a case study design. Next. Sampling. Unless there's maybe Joyce, if there are any questions on the design, we can take them before we go to the sampling methods.
Yeah. Monica Sairo asks, can you use narrative as a method of data collection in an ethnography design?
Mm-hmm. Narrative as a method of data collection.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Essentially, narrative is a design. And therefore, it's not a data collection. You cannot use it as a data collection method. But then when you go to the data collection methods, we are going to look at just about 3 in a few. One of the things that we commonly have is in-depth interviews. In the in-depth interviews, what we normally capture are stories, but those stories are largely narratives. They are largely narrations from different people. So the data collection method will not be narrative, but will be in-depth interviews.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen, okay, go ahead.
Yeah, you can see the questions in the chat. Mm-hmm. Benjamin Muindi asks, do you find that the designs overlap? And Jeremiah reiterates, can we use more than one design in a study? For instance, case study and ethnography?
Yes, we can use more than one design in a study, depending on the facets of the study, because the objective of the study and the scope of the study defines the kind of designs that we can use. And that explains why a number of times nowadays we have multidisciplinary studies. More often they deploy different different designs. So essentially, the answer to that would be yes, that we can use multiple, we can use a number of designs. And then the other thing is when you ask about whether there's an overlap of the designs, there's some overlap, but predominantly each design has criteria, has different characteristics, have different approaches. And for that reason, the designs may look overlapping, but predominantly they have their core way of deployment, or how we use them when you're collecting, when they influence data collection method.
All right, Ruth Kitty says, please comment on the unobtrusive method in relation to qualitative research. And Evelyn Caberia says, can FGD, focus group discussion, be used in narrative inquiry? We also have Joy Ann, who is asking, the questions are coming fast and furious.
Yes.
Maybe we take those two, or you can see if those belong to the next section. Some people are asking questions that are ahead of the presentation, which is amazing. Yes. Joy Ann is asking, is content analysis ethnographic, or is there a wider approach to it?
Yes, content analysis. Content analysis, I think I will take that when we do analysis next week. So we'll handle that later. Whether FGD can be used as used in a narrative inquiry, yes, it can, because FGD is just harvesting stories from a group of people. In observational studies, I believe they are part of qualitative analysis. What can be used to reduce the bias? Wow, reduction of bias in qualitative research. I'll talk about that. Let me just note that, and then I'll talk about it at some point. Reducing bias. Okay, so I can go to sampling. So majorly, we have, just like we have the two main research methods, that is qualitative, quantitative. Of course, now we have the mixed method. We also have categories or different two lines in terms of sampling methods. So we have probability sampling methods, and we also have non-probability sampling methods. Probability sampling methods lend themselves much more to quantitative research. Non-probability sampling methods lend themselves much more to qualitative research. And it's important to emphasize the fact that the sampling method that we choose in qualitative research must seek to deepen understanding of the social phenomena. And I think that's the drive throughout in any qualitative research. We want to deepen our understanding of social phenomena. And again, like I've said, the sampling method that is commonly used in qualitative research is largely non-probability sampling technique. And this is about the fact that the probability that a respondent will be picked is unknown in qualitative research. Next. So we have largely four. Again, I've seen when I was going through a couple of books on sampling methods in qualitative research, I've seen a number of them coming up. But the most common ones are purposive, snowball, quarter, and convenience sampling. Next. So the first one there is purposive sampling, and purposive sampling is a sampling method where we only pick elements within the population that have a specific criteria or the information that we need. So that if we are studying, for example, behavior of students, then we walk into that population and we pick out purposively people we think that have the information that we require on students' behavior. If we are studying prevalence, for example, prevalence of sexual and gender-based violence in a population, again, we walk to, for example, in a facility and look for people who work in the Gender Recovery Center. We go to the police department. So we pick out, as part of the population, people we think have the information that we need. Oh, somebody's saying that I'm hanging. Joyce, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. I think it's probably that person's internet. So,
okay.
Conrad, check your internet.
All right. Yeah. So, purposive sampling, we pick people with information, with who have information, who we imagine have information that we require. That is purposive sampling method. Next. Snowball, we rely on referrals, and in snowball sampling method, we identify the first people whom have the information that we require, or we imagine have the information that we require, and then it works in terms of waves. So the first person we identify will link us up, will refer us to other people that they know, and then the people they know will also refer us to other people that they know. So it works in waves. If you look at the diagram that we have the first wave of 2 people, and then they link us to the second level. Again, the second level will give us information and refer us to the next level. So it is basically a referral. Next. Convenience. You know, this one, for example, we walk in the streets, and whoever we meet, we ask them questions. We imagine that they have information that we require. So if we're doing opinion polls, then I walk on the streets and you find somebody conducting opinion polls, they'll meet anybody on the streets and ask them, for example, if elections were held today, who would you vote for? So that is convenience sampling. So it is whatever the cases that we meet, we pick them out. So it's just based on the convenience of the researcher. Next. This is a quota system. You know, we pick out cases within the subgroup. Like we have a population, then we decide out of this population, we only want to pick men or males who are above 50 years. And then still from within the population, we'll again pick, we want to pick 10 females who've gone to the university, something like that. So essentially, it is picking up subgroups within a population and restricting the others. And I think this is common, like previously when there was a directive from the government on admissions into secondary schools, there is a quota, there is a number that can go to the national level, there is a number that can go to the county schools, especially in our context in Kenya. So that is a quota system. It's quota sampling. Next. Okay, again, any questions on sampling methods before we jump to the tools? Any questions, any concerns, any additions?
Addition I can make
Sure.
very much Okumu is that
Hello?
okay. I think
Charles,
addition,
you can hold on after, you can come in after Aurelia. Charles, you come in after Aurelia.
okay, I just wanted to make the addition that then it means that because you talked about the criteria, it means that one has to be very rigorous with the criteria, especially for the purposive sampling, and has to really justify how you're designing that criteria. And of course, it is also backed up by literature that you're reading and also linked to your research objectives. I just wanted to make that remark on how thorough your criteria needs to be so that you can justify every choice you're making in terms of those you will sample. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think that's a useful intervention. That's very useful intervention, because if you're doing purposive or even convenience sampling, you really need to be convincing why anybody you meet on the streets or anybody you meet on the way would be able to answer your question. So that's very useful. We really need to back that up. We really need to be rigorous. Thank you for that. Charles, you can go. Charles?
Charles, please unmute your audio. Charles Moai, welcome.
Hello, you can hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to find out the issue of biasness, especially in purposive sampling. Would I not, when the referral system, would they not be referring to you people who they are within their cohort, or they are within their cohort and will not necessarily represent the totality of the population? And also maybe in convenience sampling, maybe the people you meet by chance sit conveniently together. So you may not, are there chances of biasness that you don't get the general population's feeling? Thank you.
Thank you, Charles. And I've seen almost closely related to that question on the chat.
Yes.
The truth is that the sampling method that we choose, we must be very deliberate in determining whether that choice can give a representation of the population. And I'll give you an example. If you want to study, I'm looking for an example that lends itself to purposive sampling. If you're studying implementation of policies, for example, we want to study policies that have been developed in the country or in our institutions, and we want to determine the level of implementation of those policies. I don't think if you walked into a village, you will be able to answer that question of implementation of a policy. But it would be useful. You can convince me that if you go into the ministry and you talk to the PS, if you go to a county office and you talk to the chief officers, then you can be able to answer the question of implementation of policies. And therefore, that study we can convincingly say that we are doing purposive sampling for reasons that the respondents will adequately address the study that you want, the questions that you have in the study. And for that reason, purposive sampling would be very useful. The other thing that I also need to point out is when you do convenience sampling, one of the things that you commonly don't do when you do convenience sampling is that you cannot make generalizations. You cannot make generalization about the population. And that is, I think, is one of the limitations of that kind of a study. Because if you walk on the streets, the people who are on the streets at a particular time may not necessarily answer or represent the entire population. So we can't make a generalization when we use such a sampling method, especially the convenient sampling. Somebody had asked that we make a distinction between quota and purposive sampling. And like I've said, purposive sampling, we are identifying people within the population that we believe, we pick people who we believe have the information that we require. In a quota system, it's grouping people. We have groupings within the population, and we identify them and engage them in the study or involve them in the study, such that if we have 20 schools, for example, in Nakuru County or in Nairobi County, and we are saying that out of the 20 schools, we can only take 10 to the national schools, we can only take 10 to the county schools. That is different from purposive sampling. That is a quota system. It's a quota sampling method. So that's the distinction. That in purposive sampling, we are identifying people who have information that we require. In quota, we divide the population into subgroups, and the subgroups become part of our respondents.
Unless there's any... to add something, Okumu.
Yes.
Yeah, about this question on representation and bias. And I think I tie it with how you very well explained the underlying philosophy of qualitative studies is that if you look at a constructivist lens, constructivist approach, it talks of many truths, that there are many ways you understand a phenomena, even the elephant, which means that your concern in qualitative is not about generalizing It's about understanding meanings that particular people are giving based on their particular context. So I think when we do qualitative studies, the idea of bias and representation in that sense is not really what qualitative is aiming for. It's more about experiences in their context, meanings, and multiple ways of understanding a phenomena. If then a phenomena you are concerned about generalization, then I think you can use mixed method. You can now bring in a qualitative study so that now you can understand the numbers, the generalization of a phenomena. But I think the rigor that is required in qualitative research is now when you're sampling, you have to be very clear. How did you get these participants? How did you sample? So that now people will understand, were they sitting together? How exactly did you go about? So qualitative talks a lot about openness. You have to be very open and reflexive in your methodology. That's all I wanted to add.
Thank you so much for that. Let me just comment briefly. There are questions on the chat, and I'll comment on, take the first one that I just saw, that somebody is asking the link between sampling methods and the philosophical approaches. And I want to link this and take, for example, purposive sampling. If we want to understand the experience of children who've run to the streets, and looking at children, we have institutions in our country that take care of children on the streets, and these institutions, more often they go to the streets, get the children into the institutions, and then there are children who run back to the streets. They run away from the institutions. If we wanted to understand their experiences and their feelings about the institutions, then we go to the streets, and the best sampling method that you can use in that context can only be snowball sampling method. Because if we want to understand experiences, and therefore we are into phenomenology, then the only sampling method that would help us there has to be, for example, snowball, because we don't know the entire population. We don't know who the respondent is likely to be, but we know at least one of them, or we know at least two of them. So the two of them will help us harvest the experience of these children who run away from the institutions back to the streets. So to that extent, if we use a phenomenological philosophical approach, then because phenomenology seeks to understand experiences, seeks to understand the pains that people have gone through. And we want to understand that from the children's perspective, children who've run back to the streets, then the sampling method that we can use at that particular point is snowball. We can't do phenomenology. We can't do purposive, for example. So for that reason, that would be the link. Then the other question that somebody has asked, whether survey is part of qualitative research or quantitative research. Survey seems to overlap in both. You could do a survey in qualitative research and quantitative research. There is a last one that I saw. Is it possible to first purposively sample, then randomly sample the subgroup? I'm not so sure whether that is really random, because when you purposively select respondents, you already know that this population that I'm sampling would be able to have the information. And back to the example that I was giving earlier about policy implementation. If we take policy implementation and we're looking at policymakers, if we know that the policymakers in this country are 1,000, to that extent, we can be able to determine a sample size using the quantitative methods. But if we do not know, and we know that, like, for example, I'm looking at implementation of policies within higher institutions of learning. And the reason why I'm picking out that is because, these are institutions that are meant to do research, they are meant to develop policies, they are meant to implement them. Of course, that may not be the case in most of our universities. But purposive sampling will only be useful or will only be important for us if we are looking for people who have information that is relevant to us. So we can purposively select a study area, we can purposively select the context of the study, then randomly select the respondents. And I need to add that sampling methods, we can use multiple sampling methods in one given study. It is not closed that if we pick one sampling method, then we have to use that all through or in all the aspects of the study. So we can use multiple sampling methods in one given study. Right, so we can go to the data collection methods in qualitative research. Again, these are just 3 that I managed to pick out. Of course, scholars are adding them as research continues. People are adding others. But the most common ones that are used in qualitative research are either interviews, and this can be either in-depth interviews, they can be in one-on-one interviews, so generally interviews. Then you also have observation. Observation, again, in qualitative research, can either be participant observation or non-participant observation. And then we also have focused group discussions. Next. So interview methods, this is common, like I've said, is common in qualitative research. And this is basically a conversation. Can be either questions are ordered, or we have few questions that we just present to the respondents. So generally, when you use interview methods, we have an interview protocol that guides the questions that we are asking. It has broad questions that we want to engage the respondent into. So interview is a very useful method of getting in-depth information. And like I've said, can be in person, can be one-on-one, or it can be, more than one. Next. Observation. Before we go out to do observation, again, we have to develop an observation protocol, basically to guide us in terms of what we are going out there to observe, so that we are not observing everything that we get on our way, but we are observing what answers to the research that we are doing. And in observation, like I've said, you could have participant observation, where we go into a community, we go into a society, immerse ourselves into that society so that we understand why they do the things they do. We be part and parcel of that community. That is participant observation. And then we have non-participant observation, where the respondent may not necessarily know that is being observed, because if they know, they can easily manipulate their behaviors. So the respondents might not know that they are being observed in case of non-participant observation. But this is getting real experience of our respondents out there in the community. Next. Focused group discussions. This is about 8 to 10 people sitting and with one moderator. And the FGD is meant to harvest stories. It's meant to harvest information from a group of people. And commonly in selecting participants to FGD, we select people who have some homogeneity in their understanding, some homogeneity in educational levels, some homogeneity in where they live. That influences the kind of people that we invite to an FGD. Because if we invite people of different classes to an FGD, then there's the tendency of one person dominating. There's the tendency of others others fearing to engage in that discussion. So FGD is also another tool that we can use. Any questions on the tools? Any additions? Again, I'll go to the chat as Joyce helps me.
Yes, there's a question from Kwesi Gesi, all the way from Ghana. I believe it must be very early there. So he's saying, please, you said choosing a research design is based on scope and objectives of the study. Please, can you throw more light on the statement and why a researcher needs to choose a particular design for a study, since it's sometimes confusing?
Okay, design and how the design influences scope and objectives of the study. Okay, I'm trying to think back on the designs that I was talking about. For example, if we pick a design like narratives as a design, like I'd said, implies that you're going to use stories as our main source of data. If you're using stories, can you imagine the number of stories that you can be able to collect? So in that context, it implies that the scope of a study, the scope of the study that we are conducting, influences the kind of the design that you're going to study, the kind of the design that you're going to pick, such that if our design is narratives, then we cannot go get narratives from 1,000 people. It has to be a limited scope. Remember, like Aurelia explained earlier or emphasized earlier, our intention is not to make generalization. And therefore, even in doing narrations, we are not interested in making a generalization. So the scope would be limiting the kind of the design that we want to pick out. We cannot pick narration if we know that the scope of our study is, for example, geographically, the entire country of Kenya. Then narration will not be the best design that we can pick at that particular moment. This scope that we are talking about, again, has a link to the objectives of the study that we want to undertake. If we are studying, for example, if we are studying, I'm looking for an easy objective. If you're studying retirement, for instance, the experience of people who have retired, that is what we want to study. This experience as an objective can only be limited to a given geography. It can only be limited to a given population. And therefore, we could say, for example, we are studying experience of retirees from the national government, which is equally very big. We might not even capture all of them. So that experience that objective will limit the scope, and it will define the kind of design that we want to pick out. So for that reason, the scope and the objectives influence the kind of design that we can be able to take. If we are studying, for example, you want to study prevalence of crime in a given town or in a given city, then you cannot pick narratives. You have to go quantitative, a design that is quantitative in nature. So to that extent, the objective influences the kind of design that you want to take. I'm not sure whether there is any other down there.
No.
Okay. Or any other comments?
Members, please raise your virtual hand.
Yeah, any comments, any additions, any clarifications that you want to make? Okay.
I don't see any hands raised. Okay, there is now questions streaming in on the chat.
Yes.
Eric, what factors do you consider while preparing an interview guide? And then Benjamin Muindi asks, I think it's a comment. Document analysis can be an additional tool.
Great, thank you. Document analysis is part of the tool that we can use. You said the other question, repeat that again, Joyce, the other question. Factors to consider, I've seen it. Factors to consider when doing an interview guide. First of all, the duration of the interview is important in influencing the kind of interview schedule that you're going to have. The time that you're going to have. If the interview is scheduled for 1 hour, then you cannot have 10 questions or 20 questions. So the number of questions in an interview schedule will definitely be limited in terms of the duration that you have. The second thing is the breadth that you want to cover will influence the size and will influence the interview schedule in the sense that you can only have very broad questions and hope that that will generate discussions. And as it generates discussions, then you can be having follow-ups. But as a rule of the thumb, have broad questions, have them very few that can be handled within a given time frame, because staying with somebody for 2 hours in an interview schedule can be very boring. So more often we limit the questions from, I've seen a couple of interview schedules that have about 5 to 10 questions, but extremely broad questions, which allow for probing, allow for discussions with the respondents. I saw another question here. What informs the number of participants in an FGD? Some studies advise for 7 to 8. You have indicated 8 to 12. Please explain further on that. How many FGDs are sufficient for a single study? If you're doing an exclusively qualitative study, then again, the number of FGDs that you can handle will be largely be influenced by the objective and the geographical scope of the coverage of the study. That would influence the number of FGDs that you can have. And also the varieties, or let me say, the socioeconomic characteristics that you have within the population that you want to study. That influences the kind of people and the number of FGDs that you want to have. In terms of the number of people that can go into an FGD, I think there is no consensus among scholars in terms of the exact number that should be there. And I guess that's why we always have the variations in terms of the numbers. So people have 8 to 12. If you ask me what informed this, I'm not so sure. I don't know, because I've also seen in a couple of books, you have that variation. So I think when we are doing proposals, when we are conducting research, the key thing is to ground whatever decisions that we are making. We ground them on some literature. We ground them on some research that has been done to be able to convince any panel or any study, make any study valid by validating it with other researches that have been done that define the number of people in an FGD. Otherwise, there are a number of variations. I see a hand, Eda.
Yeah, thank you. It's a nice presentation. I'm really learning a lot. I just wanted to add probably one thing that informs the number of people in the group. It's also to avoid a crowd. That's why it's 8 to 12 or 8 to 10 that's why the range is recommended, because when people are too many, then it will not really capture the objectivity. It will just be a crowd. Some people hanging out. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you for that addition. For sure, if you have the moment you hit 20, then you have a crowd, for example. If you hit 20, you hit 15, you're having a very high number that therefore prevents discussions, prevents contribution. Because again, if you have so many people, you'll have some people just lying there. They're not contributing much, as Ed has indicated. They may not contribute because you have a very high number within a given time. And secondly, it can be a very disruptive meeting if you have too many people. So thank you for that addition, Eda. I think that's it, unless I'm not so sure whether I have some other thing. I think I have summaries somewhere, some summary at the last slide. Yes. In terms of data collection tools, that if we are doing an in-depth interview, then we are exploring. The purpose of that is to just explore individual experiences and perceptions. And the whole idea is to have a rich detail. Focus group is to generate unique insights into shared experiences, because we are talking about a group that is fairly homogeneous, and therefore that homogeneity is expected to give us some shared experiences by the group, some norms that they have as a group. And then observation, just to learn about behavior as people behave in their natural setting. So that's what you're seeking with an observation. And thank you, Benjamin. You added document review. Document review, we are seeking to, identify patterns within patterns of communication that describe characteristics of a given institution or people. Somebody is asking how reliable is observation. The reliability tests in an observation more often is based on, see, when we develop an observation protocol, the observation protocol ideally, as a researcher and ethically speaking, we are expected to be objective as we collect data. So observation, and maybe just before I say that, let me just note that in qualitative research, the key figure in qualitative research is the researcher himself. That is an important figure in qualitative research. So if our key figure in qualitative research is the researcher, then the researcher is biased in nature, then the data that you're going to have is definitely not valid and may never be very useful. So for that reason, the first step, the first person is that researcher should be objective enough. And then the second thing in terms of observation is that the protocol should guide whatever we are going out to, go out to observe, so that we are not just observing.
Excuse, sir. Sorry.
Yes, go ahead, Eric.
I'm not seeing where to raise my hand on.
Okay.
But just on.
You've muted yourself.
Just on observation,
Mm-hmm.
At some point, in terms of reliability, right?
Yes.
Yeah, somebody was asking me just to bring it to your attention.
Mm.
For example, you are studying you are carrying out research on sexual workers, right?
Mm-hmm.
We are together.
Yes, I'm getting you.
Yes, and you are using observation as one of the approach.
Yes.
Then you go and sit somewhere. Then you are observing people, maybe ladies walking into a pub. So after this, you will assume that all these ladies are sexual workers, but in real sense, some of them have just gone there to pick something. So that's why I'm asking, how reliable is it?
Great, thank you, Eric. You see, before we set out to collect data, whether qualitative or quantitative data that we set out to collect, we go out there to collect. One of the things that we must always do is to define our population, so that when I go out there, I don't just observe any lady. I must be very certain that wherever I am, the study area that I am in, I'm actually observing the right people. And like I said, we have two methods of observation, either non-participant or participant. If by observing these people in a club does not provide objective or reliable data, then you might want to do participant observation. I'm not so sure how that would be done in a context of commercial sex workers or any commercial sex worker, exactly. I'm not so sure how you can be a participant unless you want to be. But then the other thing that I had said earlier is that even in all these methods that we are saying, all these data collection tools that you're talking about, first of all, they rely on the researcher's ability to remain objective, the researcher's ability to remain true to the cause that he is trying to achieve. Then, once the researcher is certain that that is what he wants to achieve, then the observation protocol, and then the people or the context that we want to observe. We can't, and if you tell me you walk into a club and you're observing, you decide that any lady who walks into a club would be a commercial sex worker, that would be very wrong, because not everybody in that club would be a commercial sex worker. But if you're saying, for example, that you walk along the streets and the streets that are known, streets that have been documented as the streets where we find commercial sex workers, then we can walk there and do an observation. Like, for example, in most countries, there are always red light streets that if you go to, you can observe commercial sex workers. And to that extent, then that really limits observing the wrong things. So for that reason, I still think that observation can still be used, can be very objectively used.
And again, sorry.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, because that's the reason why I was linking it to commercial sex workers. Sometimes getting information from these people tend to be very difficult, especially when you approach them even with the questionnaires, right? So observation has always been termed as one of the best methods to use.
That's correct.
Yeah, but now, because now I'm also gaining knowledge from you, what would you recommend in such circumstances to be used as one of the data collections in this kind of environment?
In an environment, for example, difficult, or a population that is not so easy to reach, like commercial sex workers.
Yeah, in a population which is not very easy to reach.
Okay. Of course, these methods are like, if you want to do observation, because I know of a study that was done sometime in Nakuru, and the person who was conducting the study was decided to do participant observation, not necessarily going out there, but this was a lady. So she joined the group. She was taken through all the rules that those people have, and she stayed with them and appeared every evening, every night on the streets with them, just to try and understand them. So that was participant observation, but essentially that helps in understanding that kind of a population. I am currently doing a study on street children, which is also equally a very difficult population to handle. But I've not become one, so it's not participant. But what I've done is just informal interviews with them. You know, I walk to the streets dressed casually that they'll not be scared about me. They'll not identify me so much. Just discuss with them informally. And I don't carry any questionnaire. I don't carry any writing material. But after every discussion with any of them, I go sit somewhere, basically recall everything that we had a discussion on. That could still be a method because, for example, if you want to get, again, just back to your group, commercial sex workers, I'm sure if you wanted to know, for example, people who engage them, like there are projects that work with them, there are individuals that engage with commercial sex workers, you could still do Snowball. So you could still do references and have in-depth interviews with them. So you could Snowball, engage them informally, you could have through programs, and that way then you can stay objective. Thank you, Eric, for that. Justina, I can see Justina's hand.
Yeah, sorry, Doc, I might take you a little, maybe some steps behind. My network dropped at some point and I had asked a question on observational studies. This is in a situation whereby the respondents know that they're being watched, but then you're trying to observe their daily behavior on some specific aspects to help you collect your data and come up with a conclusion at the end of it. You don't want to really miss out the actual behavior, but now that they know they're being watched, how would we reduce the biasness in such an aspect?
Wow, I know that's a tough one. Just like what happens when we have they're called what, when students go for teaching practice, there's always somebody back there watching their behavior and how they're doing it, which is normally not very real when it comes to the real teaching that they do. So the person tries to make their best foot forward. So you rarely get the exact picture, the exact behavior. And for me, when people know that they're being observed, it's normally very difficult to get the exact behavior that you're looking out for. Because when we know, all of us, when we know we are being observed, we try to manipulate our behavior. And for that reason, I would always go for a methodology that allows the respondent, or a data collection method that allows the researcher to stay the way they are. And for that reason, an observation where the participant or the respondent is not aware that they are being observed and therefore being observed in a natural setting becomes much more real. You get the exact picture than in a situation where they know that they're being observed. In terms of reduction of bias, like I indicated earlier, the protocol should be the guide. We should stay true to the data collection tools that we develop. And as we stay true to them, then that can guide how, that can guide what we are observing. But additionally, if you inform anyone that you're observing them, we'll always manipulate our behavior. So I think that we have to pick a methodology or a data collection tool that does not allow the respondent to manipulate their behavior. Because I'm so certain that most of the studies that we have can allow us to be able to use more than one data collection method. And if you combine data collection methods, that would help in terms of reducing data bias or the biasness that comes with each of these data collection method. And possibly last thing that I need to mention is that these data collection methods, each of them have weaknesses. And you can only bridge the weakness by bringing in another tool to help in terms of confirming the results of the information that we get.
Let me add something to what you're saying, Okumu.
Yes.
Really useful because...
Could you please speak a little louder, Aurelia? Come closer to the microphone. Thank you.
Are you hearing me now?
Yes.
Yes, yes.
Okay. I'm talking, I just want to really put power to what Okumu is saying, because I think what you're talking about is triangulation, where you use multiple methods of data collection in qualitative studies to be able to understand something. I have found observation very powerful because sometimes even people lie with words. So observation becomes very powerful because they say they do this. Maybe we are not corrupt, but you see, you witness corruption. So I think observation as a methodology is very powerful. I used it when I was doing my master's thesis, and I wanted to understand the interaction between healthcare providers and mothers who have children 0 to 3 years. For me to understand interactions, talking was not enough, interviews was not enough. So I did participant observation, and I went to a hospital and I was working there for some time, but I did not do it in secret because there is also ethics of observing people without telling them. So they knew I was there to do a research. They knew it was about interaction. The mothers knew, the workers knew, but the things that I found maybe people are performing because I'm doing a research, I would ask them to explain. Oh, and how come you do this? What does this mean? So it means you have to also ask about what you have observed. You cannot observe and just say, oh, I can see there's bribery. Go ahead and ask, okay, what does this mean? What did I witness? So instead of looking like a spy, look like you're co-producing knowledge with the people, and they will tell you, this is why. I could ask the nurses, how come you're shouting at mothers? They're like, these women don't hear, and then we would have a discussion around that. So don't be a spy because there are ethics around that. Go and ask and keep asking, why are you doing this? What does this mean? And I think that will give power to observation as a methodology.
Thank you, Aurelia. I think that answers that. There's a question on the chat where somebody was asking whether you can use hidden cameras. Use hidden cameras to capture what people are doing. Again, that is unethical. It would be very wrong to do that. And it can cause a lot of chaos to your study. So it's not a good, you can't hide cameras and use that as data collection method.
Yeah, so I'm just looking at the chat. We have about 11 minutes to the top of the hour, and I am not sure if we have covered all the questions. Elliot, I don't know where you had reached. There was a list of them now.
I also have another question, please.
Yeah, there's also somebody who's unmuted, but before you ask your question, maybe clarify about reliability and credibility. I see that there's that. And there are quite a number of questions, some of which might be covered in part 2. There's questions on validity. Benjamin Muindi says, from the questions, it appears we may need to discuss further in details the protocols of validity and reliability in qual.
Yes.
See Buba 1981, Denzin and Lincoln 2008, among others. So I think our group is quite alive with many questions.
Yes.
So maybe just comment briefly on that. And members, we are just about to get to the end of this session, but remember there is part 2 on Wednesday at 6 p.m. Meanwhile, please fill in the feedback form, whose link I have posted on the chat, bit.ly Journal Club feedback form. We really appreciate to know what we can improve and what went well for today's session. So over to you, Eliud.
Okay, reliability and validity as one of the questions that I can see Benjamin is raising that we really need to look at, that we may need to discuss this in detail. And I think I'm not so sure whether to pick this up at this point in time, but
if it will be covered on Wednesday, then I think we can invite every one of us on that day. Is that the case? All right.
I think I can deal with that next
Wednesday. Yes.
Yeah.
Qualitative research is a big topic. Let us have Eric Mwangi. I believe you are the one who was asking the question.
Sorry, this is Eric Okot.
Okay, well, who was talking before? Okay, Eric Okot and then Eric Mwangi. Welcome.
Yeah, based on what my colleague just put on the chat table, right? Mm-hmm. On CCTV to if we can use CCTV to be one of the observation method, right?
Yes.
Now, remember when you are using observation as one of the methods to collect data, you don't have somewhere where the respondents have signed or anything to own this, right?
Mm-hmm.
But now I'm trying to link this because according to the knowledge I have, let's say if you have collected the data through the method of observation and you recorded your findings,
yeah,
and probably you want to use them somewhere. And currently I've heard if even you are using CCTV to trace even other crimes, you cannot use this one as an evidence to present in the court of law.
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm just trying to link this to the method of observation.
Yes.
And this CCTV thing. I don't know.
That's true. And
terms of ownership.
Okay. That's one. And then the second and most important thing is the ethical considerations. You should not observe me when I don't know you're actually observing me, because I need to give my consent to participate in your research. You cannot make me participate on your own terms without informing me that I need to participate. That's one. And of course, what you've already said is also important, that if you use a CCTV camera on me and you have that information, first of all, I can disown it. And if it goes to court, then of course you will be liable for charges, because you cannot engage people in research without them having been given a consent. Eric Mwangi, then Austin will come in. Eric Mwangi.
I think I raised my hand unknowingly, but
okay.
What is that I've learned a lot, and I basically in qualitative research, I think we should focus on, we should make sure that we follow the ethics of research, because in the qualitative, you see that it's more biased. So in terms of observation, as I had in terms of those like this, the commercial sex workers. So it's hard to get them, and somehow if you if you, let me say, like, if you say like you'll do this secretly, like using the hidden CCTV, you can be charged for that. So basically, we should follow the ethics. I can just say that.
Thank you, Eric. Austin?
Okay, thank you. I think the issue has been highlighted here, especially on the ethical consideration regarding the use of CCTVs. It has to be reinforced here so that ethical considerations are also saved.
Eric, mute your mic. Eric, mute your mic. Okay. Austin, go on.
Yeah, it's an issue for some ethics that needs to be respected. And we also need to look at the expenses that are involved in terms of the CCTVs. All those aspects needs to be looked at their point of view of the research.
Thank you so much, Austin Muswere, all the way from Zimbabwe. I see a comment from Radha Gimire. Nice to see you all the way from Nepal. And Radha is talking about what he did. He says, I chose the content analysis of entrepreneurship policy from gender lens, how to limit my content of planning documents such as industrial policy, tourism policy, women and development policy, agricultural policy as well. These many policy documents are talking about entrepreneurship to some extent. However, there is no specific plan for entrepreneurship. Thank you so much for joining us. I think we have people from across the world. I think I'll only give the last comment to Aurelia Monene in the interest of time, and then we will take a group photo. This is your chance to greet the host, as we always do in our physical sessions, except now today we are in Zoom land. So Aurelia, welcome.
Thank you so much. Oh my goodness. Okubu, your session is so good. And because I'm a qualitative enthusiast, I'm all over in about it. I just wanted to say something that is a good practice in qualitative studies now. And it's how you said that the researcher is important because you're the one who is giving meaning to these interpretations most of the time. The good practice now is after you've collected your data, you go back to the community and say, this is what I found. This is how I'm interpreting it. Does it reflect what you meant? And then people then can say, no, I think there you did not observe well, you did not make a good conclusion. So then that also brings the rigor in qualitative so that you don't do data, you don't collect data and run away and people just see it published. So you go back and then confirm with them, did I interpret well? Did I capture what you meant? That really is good practice in qualitative studies. But thank you very much for Kuku. Really, really amazing.
Thank you so much too. Thank you, I really appreciate it.
Yes, on a special note, I would like to thank our founder, who's actually, her birthday was yesterday, Ada Africa Journal Club. You're the reason we are all here today. And thank you all participants. We've had one of the highest number of Zoom participants today. This topic was very interesting and the facilitator was top-notch. We will definitely be back for part 2 on Wednesday, 6 p.m. East Africa time. So thank you all for your comments. I believe that all of our questions were answered. If not, feel free to continue the discussion on the WhatsApp group. We have 3 WhatsApp groups currently, all are full. Some people have been asking how to join. We will inform you if you can just, David, our knowledge management lead, please share our email address so that those who would like to join Journal Club can do so. There is a feedback form. Kindly fill in the feedback form. And at this time, I'd like to ask us all to just switch on our videos if our faces are admissible for a group gallery chat. Thank you so much, David. You're always at hand for us. So if you are new, if you are a guest to Ada Africa Journal Club, please join the bandwagon. you can email us at journalclubke@gmail.com. Please also share the feedback form link again, David. And shortly we will take videos with those whose videos are on. So kindly switch on your video if you would like. I think you'll have to switch across the pages. We are 3 pages on the Zoom call. So, so David, we are smiling. We are ready when you are. Some people are joining now. I'm not sure if they had a different time zone. So maybe this is when they thought to join the call. Yeah. So I'm seeing many messages of thank you. Helen gave a wonderful takeaway from today's seminar. Thank you so much, Helen, from Moi University. I don't have time to read it all, but it's on philosophical foundations. And Dr. Josephine Modami, thank you for being here. You say, thank you so much for this presentation, Eliud. William, if you can email us, we will be able to send you all the resource materials after you fill the feedback form. And thank you everybody for being here. David, are you ready with the photos? The gallery?
Yeah. You can keep unmuting yourself. So I'll start with the first page, then the second one, then the last.
Okay, so, wonderful. Yes, you can take a gallery screenshot, which we archive in our resources. Dorothy Obengo, Pastor Dorothy, thank you for being here. Thank you so much. I have learned much and I will join on Wednesday. Christine says, thanks for the presentation. It was educative. Lucy, thank you so much, Eliud and Ada Africa for this session. Ngini is saying newcomer, and you sent your email address. Mashkur as well. Karibuni, and I'll see you again on Wednesday. Meanwhile, those who participated in this morning's Shut Up and Write session, feel free to comment in the WhatsApp group if you are able to do your individual study time uninterrupted. Aurelia, I don't know if you have any last comments before we give it back to our facilitator of today. Welcome, Aurelia.
Just to celebrate, Eliud, thank you so much. I hope we can have the slides. Normally people like going back and working with them so that they can be able to develop their paper. So that would be great to have the slides. And then I just want to say thank you for doing this and thank you all for coming.
Yeah, just to say thank you.
Yes, welcome.
Thank you everyone for finding time for us to share this. I think it was very interactive. I really appreciate, and the questions have challenged my thinking. I'll have to relook at other things again, but I guess learning doesn't end, it's continuous. Thank you so much. Thank you, Ada, and thank you, Aurelia.
All right, Moas asked for your contacts. Eliud is actually a member of Journal Club, so since you have joined, you'll be able to get that, no problem. So asanteni sana, everyone. It is 12:02 p.m. in Nairobi, Kenya. So have a great afternoon, everyone.
Bye.
Okay, you can unmute and say goodbye. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Moderation.
And I'm super happy today. There was someone who was my Bye. Bye.
Bye, everybody.